you want to get all the chlorine out of your water, and I was using Brita filters before, but they're expensive and they take ages to get all your water clean. And now they're using chloramine instead of chlorine. You can't just leave it overnight. You got to do something. I think Camden tablets still work, but I haven't actually tried those. So I bought this kit, and it's very cheap. It was about 15 quid plus 2 filters for the kit. Really easy to install. It just clips onto a pipe here and takes another feed off. And I'm just changing out the filter now because it's been about 6 months that these last for. So before I get started, I'm just going to change out the filter, which, as you can see, is quite easy to do. Now I just need to run that through for a bit, and then we're ready to get started. So I've got my 19 litre stock pot here, and there's about 16 litres or so in here of strike water, that's filtered water. I'm going to heat this up to 72 degrees, and I've got my thermometer here with an alarm on it at 70 degrees to tell me when it gets temperature. So I'm going to turn that on now and then measure out my grain. There's calculators online which will tell you exactly how much water to put in for how much grain and how much it's going to displace and that kind of thing, but these days I just kind of go freehand. At this point, when it's just the water in there, you can put the lid on, so just to speed things up a little bit. So I'll do that now, turn on the gas and measure out my grain. So I've got another 10 litre, I think it's about 9-10 litre stock pot here. When I fill this up, it's about 4.5 kilos of grain. And that's about right for what I make. I've got here some amber malt. I'm just using up bits and pieces this time around, so I'm going to stick all of that in. That's probably what, 100, 150 grams or so. And I have some, I think this is caramel. I'm not going to use too much this one because I don't particularly like the sort of darker taste on it. But 50, 100 grams or so, and then the rest is going to be Marisotto. That'll be about 4.5 kilos overall in there. So that's my alarm for 70 degrees. And I want the water up to 72 degrees, but before I get there, I'm going to put my bag in. This is a boil in the bag, beer bag. And stick that in there. Just because, and also I'm going to put my metal jug in here as well, because I want to be able to pull out about a litre of water to get just to make sure I don't overflow when I'm putting in my grain. So I'll attach this and then put the thermometer back in. When I get to 72 degrees, I'm going to put this inside of its jacket. This is an insulated sleeve that I've just made out of like some old foam and insulation stirrup. My water at 72 degrees, and now I'm just going to mash in. I've got a litre or two of water which I've taken out on the side there, and I'm just going to slowly pour this in while stirring, try and keep the lumps out of it. one's a little bit low, so I've got some more here which I took out, so I'm just going to bring the water level up a little bit. And now I'll start to measure the temperature. Just making sure I haven't got any sort of lumps stuck together. Seems fairly alright. If I do get any lumps, I can just smash them against the sides. I've still got a little bit of room that if I'm too low on the temperature I can bring it up a bit with the boiling water in the kettle. Yeah, so it's sitting at 64 degrees, so I'll pour in some boiling water and then I'll put the top on. Then I'll put insulated lid on. And then fuzzy blanket. I have done this in the past with just duvets and that actually worked pretty well. And this is just a bit easier to store and handle. So then I'll leave that now for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. I'll come back to it then. It's been a couple of hours and I'm going to pull the, I'll pull this out of the insulation and I'm going to get ready to pull the bag out. I've got about another 8 litres or so of water heated to 77 degrees, that'll be my sparge water. I usually sparge 2 or 3 times, but today I really can't be bothered. So I'm going to take the hit on the efficiency and just do one sparge. So I'm just going to take this out now. Now I've got my fermenting bucket there, that's what I use to sparge in. So I'll just stick that in there for now. Stick this one on the gas and get things starting to heat up. Tea towel hook here just to hang this ever so slightly off the ground inside my pan, and just lets the last bit drain out into that pan, and then I'll pour this into the main wort. You can see here I'm now pretty much at the top of my pan. This is 19 litres. So I'll use the rest of what's coming out of that bag to top up here. I have to be a little bit careful that I don't get foam coming over the top. But I'll wait for this to boil up and then start adding hops to it. Today I'm going to use Worcester Goldings, which I've never used before. only 4.87. I'm going to put 50 grams of those in for about an hour, and 7 minutes before the end I'll put in another 25, maybe a bit more, Italian. They're my favourite. So yeah, these ones are whole hops, so I'm going to put these into a sock. These ones are pellets, so I'll just put those in as is. So I've got my boil happening here, so I'm going to put in my 50 grams of Goldings. The reason I'm using 50 grams is because it comes in 100 gram packets, and then I can use it for 2 brews. And with the aroma hops, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll put in 25 grams 10 minutes before the end, and then I'll dry hop with 25 grams as well, and that leaves me with enough for two brews from one bag, basically. So what I'll do now is I'll put my alarm on for 45 minutes, because I've got half a Protafloc tablet here, which I'll put in a quarter of an hour from the end, and then give it 5 minutes, and then we'll put in 25 grams of the Italian hops. The other thing I've done at the back there as well is I've also just brought to a boil the sparge water, because this will boil down as I'm going along, but I don't want the concentration to get too sort of thick, because then it won't be bittered as efficiently. So I'll just keep topping up as we go along with the sparge water from the back. The other thing is, like, I bought actual hop socks, but what you can do, and what I do when I'm dry hopping, is you can buy these cleaning cloths. You can get like 5 for £1 from Wilko's. If you just cut the seam off the top, you've got yourself pretty much a hop sock there, a hop bag, which is a lot cheaper than what you can get from a brew shop. So while all that's bubbling away over there, I've done a couple of things. I've put 200 mils of boiling water, this is filtered boiling water, into a jug here. I'm going to use that later on once it's cooled down to rehydrate my yeast, and I'm going to start sterilising my fermentation vessel and my cooling tubes and all that sort of stuff. I use this is sodium carbonate. This is what I knew it as. It's sodium carbonate peroxyhydrate, and I use that, I think it's like 3 teaspoons to 5 litres, and that becomes a no-rinse sanitizer. I used to use bleach. You can use that as well. I think it's like I think it's about a tablespoon to a gallon, something like that. I'll check that out, but that too can be used as a no-rinse sanitizer. Okay, so I'm just setting up my kind of sketchy cooling rig. So this is 8mm copper pipe, and it goes inside of a piece of garden hose with 2 T-sections, and I think I seem to remember I used like epoxy putty to seal in here, and then shrink tube over the top, and then that goes through into the bathroom. So I have here, this is the end of the shower head. I've taken the shower head off, and it attaches just in here, so that gives my cold water into the jacket at the bottom of the coil, and then the outflow from that comes down and into the bath. I've got my stuff sterilising there. I have been sterilising in the actual fermentation vessel itself, but I'm going to empty that out now. I'm going to hook up my 2 hoses to these 2 points here, so I've got my input here and my output here, and then I'm going to siphon through some sterilising fluid into this coil and let it sit there for a bit. Got about 10 minutes left on the boil before I start adding the last parts of my additions. So that's my alarm gone off with 15 minutes left, so I'm going to take my half a Protafloc tablet, stick that in, and I'll give it 5 more minutes now, and then I'll stick in the last of my hops. Got 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to put in the last of my hops. I've got 25 grams of Italian pellet hops. I'll pour them in, give it another 10 minutes, and then I'll start cooling it all down and getting it in the fermenter. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm just waiting to put this in some cold water. This is the water I heated up before to sterilise it, and I'm just cooling it down a bit more quickly now because I want to be able to hydrate my yeast, but it's still a little bit too warm. So I've just put that in the sink with some cold water just to cool that down a bit more. So that's the end of my boil, so I'm going to turn off the gas and remove this hot sock. I've got a couple of pairs of tongs here which I'm just going to use to help me squeeze it out, just to get rid of all the last hot flavour and all the lovely stickiness that's in there. So I've got my siphon tube that's filled with sterilising liquid, and I've got a tap on the bottom there. So what I'll do is I'll put the silicone end into the hot water once this is finished spinning, open up the tap, sterilising fluid will fall through into a separate pot, and then once I've got clean water coming through, I'll close the tap, put it into the fermentation vessel, and then start siphoning again to get everything through and cool. I'll need to turn on the cooling jacket as well. But just while that's happening, I'm going to now hydrate my yeast, because that takes about 20 minutes to do, and this will take about 20 minutes to kind of come through. That's the main reason why I do this, why I do the cooling, is mainly just for speed, because otherwise it takes ages for this to cool down to fermenting temperature. Whereas if I do it with this coil, I can be fermenting with, pretty quickly. It does make clearer beer as well, but the speed I drink beer at, it doesn't make much difference. So I'm using SO4, sulfal SO4, which I prefer. It's quite clean. It's nothing special. I used to use Nottingham, but that kind of had a bit of a twang which I didn't like to it. So I'm just going to pour that in on the top there. I'll give it 10 minutes or so, and then stir it up and give it another 10 minutes. So this has pretty much stopped spinning now. All the spinning does is it gives me a clear edge. It sort of piles up all the garbage at the hot break. Piles it all up in the middle so that I've got a clear edge where I can siphon out a little bit more if I do that spin first. So now I'm going to siphon through the first bit of liquid, turn on my jacket. Fingers crossed, here we go. Well, apologies for that, my SD card was full. Anyway, once it was done, basically it's very concentrated when it came out. I was sitting at about 14 litres there. So I added cold water to get me up to just over 20, probably about 21 litres. I've got a 19 litre corny keg, so that's what this will go into eventually. I pitched my yeast. I'm sitting at about 1046, 1048, something like that. So a reasonable strength. And I just got my little fish tank bubbler and a stainless steel stone, blowing some air through now, and I'll leave that on for 10 minutes. And then this will sit for like 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. When it's nice and clear, I'll move it into the corny keg and carbonate it. Yeah, so that was my brew day. Hope you enjoyed watching. Hope it helped someone. Thanks for watching. Bye.